But first, I want to go back to that. You're staying at your mom's place, convincing people to join you in the Fiveable house. Talk me through that blog post I read. Like, I have to know more because I'm so curious about it. How'd that happen?
Yeah. So fast forward, I had gone through an accelerator. I had moved in Utah. I did Beta Boom that summer in the really early days. And then kind of going through the accelerator, I'm like, I'm going to raise money at the end. Everything is going to work out for me. And it did not in that moment. Like, those early investors were really not pre-seed investors. That was, like, looking back, that was the mistake. I also only had a few pitches, and just in my head, I'm like, it'll be easy. I'll have the meeting. I'll get there. And everyone kind of looked at me and said, like, this is cool. Keep going, And so I had to make the decision then to move back to Maine, which at that point felt like my first, like, failure of, like, I'm not making it as I thought I would. It feels like I'm moving backwards. It ended up being really powerful for me to do that, but I still, the folks from Beta Boom around October invested an additional $20K. And I had this decision. This was really not the first time, but the first big moment where I had to decide. I have this really risky option and I have a more safe option. 20,000 at that point could get me through the school year. I could support the part-time teachers who were working with me. I could keep living with my mom and barely make it myself, but we could make it. I could stretch it. Or I could try to find other people that could work for us, and maybe we make it 10 times faster. And I really had no idea how I would do that, because $20,000 is not enough to actually hire people. And so then I thought, okay, if I go that path, how can I be creative in finding that early team? And so I took a page out of that campaign that I was working on. And actually, I had done this before too, but essentially on the campaign, they had a group of us who were living in a house. They paid for the house, and we were there for like 3 months, and we were part of the program. And it was kind of a wild offer, and they knew that it was like this crazy thing that they did. And I was like, I wonder if I could do the same thing. Like, if I could get people to move into a house with me, I'll pay the rent. None of us are paying ourselves yet, but maybe we can get there. Maybe we can build it together. And also I needed to leave my mom's house. I was getting to a point where I was like, it's time to leave the nest. So
yeah, it's fair.
I pitched the crazy idea to those first advisors from Beta Boom. They were like, that's insane, but if anyone can do it, probably you. So, like, worth a shot. And so I put up the blog post, and Tan, who is my co-founder now, saw it on Reddit, applied, moved in 2 weeks later, and we still live together today. So the lesson I learned is that people will buy into your mission and your vision and you as a person. And in the early days, like, that's the thing you have to sell them on. It can't be anything else. It's not the perks or the salary. It's like, you're joining the trenches with me, and you have to really believe what we're doing is right.
Yeah, and being on the investor side of it and seeing that and getting pitches and everything as well, we want that. Obviously, that narrative has to be tight around, like, what are you building? Why are we investing in this? And then that team side of it, it's like, to that point, you're able to convince people to join you in this house is like a huge step in, okay, you can convince other hires later on to join you, because especially people who are talented, who are A players, they have options. Like, they can work at multiple companies, they can work in all different industries, probably make a lot more money than a startup. Why are they working with you? And, like, being able to showcase that is like such a huge thing for investors on our side to be like, oh yeah, like Amanda, like, she's going to do things, like, she can do this. One of the things I want to go back to, though, like, even before all this, I kind of glossed over it, but I'm curious about it. You moved out of the state for Beta Boom to join this accelerator. How many other accelerators were you looking at? Why Beta Boom? Like, why even Accelerator? Like, I want to know more about that.
So in the first few months when I was at my mom's house, my parents had a business when I was growing up, and my grandparents had businesses. There was always entrepreneurship, but never at this scale. And so I was very much in a world that my mom was like, trying to support me as much as she could, and has always been, I think of her as like my senior advisor at this point. But we would actually watch Shark Tank together. and she would pause it to whatever, Cuban asked and say like, can you answer that? And I would do my best and I couldn't usually. And then I would run back upstairs and work on some new, projections or plan. And so that was something we did together. And in that process, I was Googling a lot, right? Like just trying to figure out what were those words that he just said? What is this thing that I have to figure out? In Googling, I literally just got a Google ad for Beta Boom. And I remember this moment. I was sitting on on the couch in our living room, and I looked at my mom and I was like, did you know that I could actually access investors? And she was like, no, like, I don't know this space. And I just had no idea. I saw Shark Tank and I saw, Silicon Valley. I had no idea that I could actually pitch someone, that someone would invest in the company that I was building. And that moment changed everything, because then I started Googling about accelerators. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world out there. So many of them. I started applying to, I think at that point I only applied to a few. I applied to Generator, funny enough, which comes back later. I applied to YC, which I was in no way prepared for. And I applied to Beta Boom. And to this day, I honestly, sometimes I don't know exactly what it was that got that shot for Beta Boom, but I think they just saw like, she's going to figure it out. The passion is just like there, and like something will happen from this.